If you know what the temperature is in Israel today?
What?
Khamsin.
Really?
Khamsin, it's unbearable. That's what...
And I'm going in July.
July is also not...
But I'm not going for long because I can't take the heat there.
But you spend all of your time in air-conditioned places.
Yeah, but to get from point to A to point B...
Yeah, what can you do?
Anyway, this isn't for filming.
When do you want to start?
Now.
Now. And no one is mentioning anything about prostitutes today, unlike the last time. Nobody. Here's one way to start, Aaron, seeing as how we're going to be doing this more than once. If some observant Jew were to have come to Hamilton in 1947, for example, you know, someone who comes into Hamilton happens to be observant, would that person have found a series of places where he or she would feel at home?
I don't ever recall a she, but he, yes, there were a number of people that passed through the community. And if they wanted food and lodging, they were generally, in those years, directed to Mrs. Leiptag.
This is
Morris's mother.
Uh-huh. And what would they have gotten there?
They would just have gotten a very light repast.
I was wondering, though, if you would talk just a little bit about whether there was a synagogue where that they would feel comfortable, whether they...
In 47?
Yeah.
They would have felt comfortable in all the synagogues, with the exception of the temple, perhaps, if they're observant.
Well, that's it. That's my point. My point was that we're talking about someone who was observant. So where could that person have gone in 47? What were the shuls in place?
Primarily Beth Jacob, which was always considered the synagogue, the Park and Hunter, or the Hess Street Shul, Ohav Tzedek, at Peter and Hess Streets, or Addis Israel, which was at Cannon and Bay, and finally the Ferguson Avenue Shul, which was Wilson and Ferguson.
When you said a minute or two ago that the Beth Jacob was considered the shul, what was it about it that made it into the shul?
Well, they were established in the 1880s by Lithuanian Jews, and primarily Lithuanian Jews. And what made it the shul? I think because most of the people there were merchants. And it was a fairly comfortable congregation.
Was it the case that it attracted the most prestigious people in the community? Is that part of what it was about? Was it the wealthiest of the congregation?
Yes, it was the wealthiest of the congregation. Although in the 1930s, they suffered as well as all the other congregations and people. Can this be cut?
Sure.
Okay, they did have a rabbi, a Wolgelernter, and they couldn't pay him.
What was his name?
Wolgelernter. And they didn't have the funds to pay him. So he came over to Addis Israel on Cannon Street.
And he became the rabbi?
For a few months.
So at that time, And what was the year again, 1930?
Yeah, about 1930, 34, 35.
So at that time, the Addis did not have a rabbi?
The Addis never had a rabbi. Rabbi Green was the first full-time rabbi.
Really?
Prior to him, the Talmud Torah principal was part-time rabbi. Rabbi Samuel Lichtiger was rabbi for several years.
Rabbi Lichtiger lived in Hamilton?
Yes. He now lives in Flatbush, New York, Brooklyn.
He must be a man of considerable years.
I think so. I haven't spoken to him in a couple of years.
But if he was the principal of the Talmud Torah, this is going back to, what, the 50s, if not earlier?
Earlier, he came with a group of rabbis from the Mir Yeshiva from Shanghai. And he came to Montreal, and he was hired by Rabbi Levine, who was the chief rabbi of Hamilton. And the Talmud Torah was established in 1911 on Vine Street. And but they never had a principal. They had teachers, but not a principal. And just as an aside, the teachers believed very strongly in corporal punishment.
As I would hope many of the teachers at the Hebrew Academy believe in.
But don't exercise their beliefs.
Precisely. Precisely.
So Rabbi Lichter was brought in around in the early 40s, or the mid 40s, must have been mid 40s. Yes?
I was going to say two things. The first of which was that if you say that Rabbi Levine was the chief rabbi of Hamilton, where did he daven?
His shul was Hess Street, the Oav Tzedek.
Ah, I see.
However, every Shabbos he would go to a different shul to preach. He was an ardent Zionist, a strong Mizrahiist, and as I said, each week he would go to a different shul.
Well, just refresh my memory. What years was he here, roughly?
He came in 1906, I believe, and he died in 1952.
And he was here for a period of time, I take it?
Yes.
May I interject? And he was George Goldblatt's father-in-law.
Jesse Goldblatt's father.
So
We
George
don't
Goldblatt-
want to leave out the women's rights here,
That's
you
true.
know.
Okay.
When you say that he went from one shul to another every Shabbos, what were the numbers like? Do you have any idea? I mean, what are we talking? A shul such as Hess, was this the second largest shul?
No, Cannon Street was the second largest shul.
Cannon Street meaning which? The Addis?
Addis, yes.
The first was the Beth Jacob?
Yes.
Even larger than Anshe Sholem?
Anshe Sholem was the largest.
But it was Reform.
It is Reform.
But it was also Reform back then, and we were talking about Orthodox.
Yes.
That's why you didn't mention Anshe Sholem. Ferguson was the smallest of the...
That's correct. Ferguson had about some 60 members. I don't even think it was that many.
The second point that I wanted to pick up on was that even if the principle of the Talmud Torah exercised corporal punishment,
The principal didn't, the teachers
the
did.
teachers did. This was at a time when many parents would likely have encouraged the teachers,
No question.
right? Because the parents themselves probably were even better than the teachers at exercising corporal punishment.
Possibly. I remember my parents saying when I would complain about the teachers that the teacher is always right. You never question the teacher. It's your fault. Whatever happened, it's your fault, not the teacher's.
that probably didn't change when your kids came home and complained about teachers,
Absolutely not.
right? You also believe that the teacher...
I still do.
You still do, right? If this person this fictitious person came into town and didn't want to go to Leaptech, wanted to go to a restaurant, were there
Delicatessens.
delicatessens? Were there
Yes.
places that
Yes.
they could go to?
The main delicatessen was Boleslavsky's on York Street. Well, they were all on York Street. York Street was the main drag. It was the Spadina Avenue of Hamilton or the Main of Montreal.
So you would go into Boleslavsky's and you could surely get a sandwich there.
Absolutely.
If we're talking 1947, what could you get for, if you came in with $2, which I imagine in 1947 was not a pittance, was a fair sum, could you get a good meal for $2, do you remember?
You'd get a fairly good meal. You'd get a sandwich, soup, bottle of pop.
And most of it was kosher.
There wasn't anyone to check it, but everyone took for granted that they were kosher.
So there were no mashgichim in...
No. The one who went around checking the butchers was the Rav himself, Rabbi Levine. He would go into the butcher shops and check out what was what.
Today...
And once they caught someone with treif meat, they closed him down, and people came to, including your great-grandfather, Jacob Goldblatt, came to the Rav and said, what do they do with their kalim, with their dishes and pots and pans? So he had two rulings. Those who could afford should replace what they had. Those who couldn't afford should have it rekoshered.
A sensible verdict. Halachically, it may not have been the most sensible.
Well, people didn't know. I mean, it wasn't done lahachas. They didn't know that the butcher had brought in unkoshered meat.
Did the butcher himself know?
Yes.
So some people must have been quite surprised. I mean, was this like one of these traumatic periods in...
That was a traumatic time, yes.
If I were to, if this person were to have gone into the deli you mentioned, and maybe we could talk a little bit about what else one could get at that deli, but...
Dill pickles, homemade.
Old dills or new dills?
Depends what time of the year you're talking about.
Were the new dills firm?
You think I remember that? I don't like new dills today, so I certainly didn't like them when I was a kid.
Well, what did you always eat there?
I never ate there. I would go in there because men played poker, so I'd go and watch.
Who were the guys that played poker? Do you remember any of them?
Yes, but I'd rather not mention names.
One would think that everyone in the community knew that
Oh
they
yeah,
played poker.
my father was one of them.
Was it the case that the poker was played in the back room? Or was it that you walked right into the restaurant?
It depends which delicatessen. Platt's delicatessen, they played in the store part.
Platts?
Platt,
Platt.
P-L-A-T-T. Boleslavsky's, they played in a room. Zucker's, I don't think anyone played poker there.
Did you ever play?
No,
You were too young to play.
I'm still too young to play.
Were the stakes high?
Pennies.
Pennies.
Yeah, it was just for the joy of playing.
But I mean, was there any stigma attached to people who played?
No, there was no stigma attached, except that they neglected their families, perhaps.
Oh, I see. That might be why you don't want to mention names.
Yes. Well, I don't mean they neglected their families money-wise.
Right.
I mean of themselves.
When you walked into a deli in those years there, and I'm trying to get a sense of whether people spoke English to each other.
No, Yiddish.
That's what I was wondering.
And they would have salamis hanging behind the counter.
Oh, it was a real deli.
Yep.
What's the best salami you've ever had? Do you remember?
I don't remember. It was Chicago something, but
58.
it could have been Chicago 58. I'm not sure.
You know who makes a really good salami, I think? Continental. But the long one.
That's what they had. Those used to hang.
Yeah. And Levitt's, as we know, has just about gone under. In Levitt's, Montreal.
I
You
know.
that, so we really don't end up...
Well, they were taken to a religious court by Toronto,
Who was?
Levitt's,
When now?
a few years ago.
Right, but I thought that was resolved.
It was resolved, so I'm a little confused as to why they're going bellies up now.
In addition to the salamis, and in addition to the pickles in the barrel,
Herring was in
a
wooden barrels, and you rolled up your sleeve and pulled out a herring, and the bread was always fresh. It was baked by Jewish bakers, but they weren't observant.
here,
Yes, Dominion Bakery, I remember. And Health Bread was also Jewish owned on James Street North. Dominion was on Cannon Street near Sherman.
well, where did Ottawa fit in? Because when I moved to Hamilton, there was a Jewish baker
Quality.
on Ottawa Street.
That was Quality.
Was that kosher bread?
No, it wouldn't be considered kosher. It wasn't treif.
Right.
We'd go Sunday mornings to buy fresh bread, and it was good.
It was very good.
Yeah, except that they weren't observant Jews, that's all. I mean, you surely have to realize that the religious world has turned far right today.
Right. So back in 1948, 1950.
You didn't have hashgacha on items. You read the contents.
Right.
My neighbors, when I was a little boy, would take me when they went shopping so I could read the contents to them.
Really?
Yes.
Because they did not read English.
They didn't read English. They didn't read, period.
Really. And as you said, many people spoke Yiddish in those
Yes.
years. People today...
With the exception of the second generation of people born here, they already spoke English.